And we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to Fresh Fit Podcast. We got a special episode today. We're here with Ryan Dawson. We're going to talk about 9/11. We're going to cover everything that they don't want you to know. Let's get into it.
Let's go. All right, we got it. Welcome back, guys.
Welcome to Fresh Fit Podcast, man. We're here with Ryan Dawson, most canceled guy on the internet, man. But so just so you guys know, quick announcement, rumble.com/freshfit. Go check us out over there. Mo's going to put at the top of the description the Rumble link because we're going to have to definitely go to Rumble once we cover a certain portion of this 9/11 situation.
And guys, download the app, man.
Already
it's a
in
better
the chat.
Experience. So get the app as well.
Yeah, get the app. So if you're watching us on YouTube, guys, we are definitely going to transition over to Rumble after a period. But we're going to be covering everything in this situation. This is going to be the most thorough 9/11 breakdown on the internet. We're going to cover what really happened, the official story versus what's really went down. And we're also going to cover and debunk a lot of the myths because there have been a lot of myths on 9/11 that we're going to cover as well. But Ryan, can you introduce yourself real quick to the people, man?
Welcome back.
Yeah, and 109% we're going to have to go to Rumble.
Yes.
Because there's certain things you just can't say on YouTube. It's sad, but they've weaponized wokeism to where certain states, certain groups, you can't say any kind of criticism about them because they'll just give you some accusation of some sort of prejudice. And it doesn't matter how asinine it is because it works. Whoever polices these social media sites, they don't care. They're looking for a pretext to cancel people. So I've been canceled on the everything. I do have my Twitter back post Elon. That's about the only social media I'm allowed on. Introducing myself. Well, I'm a documentary filmmaker, researcher. If you climb the top of the weaponized autism totem pole, you'll see me sitting on the top of it eating an apple. Because I make things like this, where you map out the crime families like Jeffrey Epstein. That'll get you in trouble. And then today we'll be going over this one. This is The Empire Unmasked, which is a 5-hour documentary on 9/11 that helped get me canceled on more stuff as well and plagiarized and so on. So I get into it. I've been telling the truth about all these wars, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Ukraine, the conflicts in Somalia, the drone strikes in Pakistan, ongoing annexation of Palestine, all the things you're not allowed to talk about. The Mexican beer, I was heavy on that one. If you know what I'm saying, trying to be YouTube friendly, right? Isn't it ridiculous that we have to talk in code and everyone knows you do, right? Even though you have a YouTube channel with almost, 1.5 million people, there's just certain words you can't say under any context, which is ridiculous, which is why we're going to have to go over the Rumble. But YouTube still has a lot of eyeballs. So we'll try and work with it in the beginning and leave the more juicy stuff toward the second half of this interview.
Yeah.
Just to be safe.
So, Ryan, you are by far the number one 9/11 researcher out of anyone I've seen. Because not only do you cover the 9/11 stuff and give the truth, you actually go through the process of getting FOIAs, which is good for those wondering, is Freedom of Information Act. Mm-hmm. And you get the documents, you read through all of them. You actually go through the thousands upon thousands of pages, read through, identify people, put links here and there. What created this? I mean, it's damn near an obsession, but a great one with 9/11. You went to the areas where it happened back in the early 2000s. You got news clips from 2001 that no one has.
From Japan too. I flew to New Jersey and New York and covered that. Well, it's just my moral compass. You can't really separate September 11th from the war in Iraq because they used 9/11 as a pretext. They associated it with Iraq. For example, Colin Powell goes to the UN with a mock trial of Anthrax, and there was a biological attack on the heels of 9/11 that initially was blamed on Al-Qaeda, saying that they were sending anthrax to senators. That isn't what ended up being the case, but too late for Iraq, right? And so you're talking about nearly 1 million people got killed in that war based on deception, and they would not have been able to pull that off without having the clout from September 11th. And then, of course, September 11th itself, you should care about. I mean, all these innocent people were killed and destroyed on the airplanes and in the buildings that were targeted. And when you find out that there was that Al-Qaeda did not operate then, before, or after by itself, solely, without the assistance of, covert assistance of intelligence agencies, should make you angry. And I saw films like Loose Change, which didn't get anything correct about 9/11 other than maybe the date. And that inspired me to try to make films, even though I, at the time, didn't know how to make film, but I did know how to do research.
Yep.
And so that's how I started in on it. But I was already politically active prior to 9/11 happening.
Awesome. So I'm really excited. So guys, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to read these chats first. Then we're going to start getting into the broadcast. I'm not going to read chats again probably until the end, guys. So if you have questions for the show, get them in now. We're going to go ahead and have a Q&A at the end, but we're going to cover a lot, and I don't want to stop the show for chats. So Chris, what do you want to call it? Go ahead.
Yeah, so 15 and up towards the end. If we can read 20 and up, that's cool. But
yeah,
guys, we have 2 shows today.
Yeah, we got 2 shows, and this one's going to be a monster. So what I'll do is I'm going to read the chats that came in first. Shout out to all you guys that came in early. We're going to show every chat on the screen, but we're not going to read anything until the end with the Q&A, and we're going to do a Q&A with Ryan because he's the #1 guy when it comes to 9/11. Like, this guy's an encyclopedia. So, okay, Adix, it goes, they're running late because they heard a knock at the door followed by FBI open up. All right, fair enough. Then we got Leprechaun, y'all that need the Transformers transformation sound effect, okay? The enigmatic one goes, them Chris, he's trying to bargain his way out with 3-year-old peanut butter, okay? We got Ryan here. It was real in my mind. Look out for spinning squirrels, okay?
Oh, no.
Maybe 43. Shouldn't this be on Fed at 1811? Dem Boyz watching. This is live on Fed as well, guys, but we're going to, like I said, as we get closer and closer to talking about certain topics, if you know what I'm saying, we're going to go over to Rumble. Blue Boy TV, new t-shirt idea. Chris meditating in garbage. Okay, fair enough. Zenilda goes, F&F, happy to be here. Hi from Laredo. Myron, do you miss Taco Palenque or Whataburger? Fresh, looking good. I definitely do. Kool-Aid Man goes, 20 minutes late, getting better, but still, oh, Chris, fair enough.
Well, to be fair, Chris was here on time, so I'll give him that.
Yeah. And
he was 2 minutes early.
Actually, yeah, he was 2 minutes early.
There you go.
Everybody fainted. No.
Oh, my God.
Never look forward to a show so much. Don't ever hesitate to reach out for your music production needs, Myron. I make music for crime shows. Okay, I appreciate that. Anthony Zarilla, after watching RD, I realized Lyra was right about that CIA agent. Okay, and then EKZ goes, hey, y'all, I called in about 7 months ago and told y'all that you inspired me to join the Marine Corps. I thought I'd give an update and tell you that I'm about to jump out an airplane next week. Just wanted to tell y'all, keep it up. Hey, man, thank you for your service. Shout out to you. And then we got Leon VRP. Those who can't be criticized are those who control us.
Ooh.
Someone has their third eye open. Good stuff. All right, cool. So, guys, for this to all make sense, we're going to have to go back in time, all right? And we have an entire outline of how we're going to run this thing. So we're going to go back to 1993. And, Chris, can you pull up that tab real fast? For you guys to understand 9/11, and it makes sense, you need to go back to 1993 when the World Trade Center was originally bombed. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, and he can explain it to you, and then we'll just work through.
By the way, I saw the comment about Lyra. He and I did a nice chat about Ukraine, if you want to check that out on Rumble later. So
yes,
nice.
1993, and I'm going to just summarize this real fast because I don't want to skip it, but I don't want to get lost in the weeds on this either.
Yeah,
because I do have a tendency to go on and on if you don't stop me. But I have a video just on this attack coming out tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch that on Rumble. But this is important, and it's odd to me that this wasn't referenced immediately when the World Trade Center was attacked in 2001. You would assume the first thing they would reference is a prior incident when the World Trade Center was attacked by terrorists, which it was in 1993. It was hit with a Ryder truck bomb, and it killed 6 people and injured far more. So it wasn't as fantastic as September 11th, but you look at the whole there. And in this incident, this is a long story, and I'm going to really oversimplify this, because we have a lot to cover. But in this incident, there was an FBI informant, and his name was Imad Selim. And he basically got yanked off the case, even though he told them they were there, that they were making bombs. He told them where the warehouse was. They wanted him to climb up the ladder to try and get the blind shake, which is a target for the FBI and the CIA for a while. They wanted him to wear a wire. He was afraid to do that. And Scott Skittish said, I'm not going to wear a wire. You have enough. These people are building a bomb. Why don't you do a sting and capture them? They're going to blow something up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they pulled him out. So he went and told the other terrorists that, oh, I think the police are onto me. And they said, okay, lay low, you're out. And they replaced him with a guy named Ramzi Yousef.
Scroll down, Chris.
Yep, scroll down. You can see this guy's mugshot. This man's uncle is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the actual mastermind of 9/11.
Right there. That's the mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, guys. And then, Chris, real fast, Google KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. That's this dude's uncle. Sorry, continue on, Ryan.
Yeah. So, we'll talk about him later too. So that's Ramzi Yousef. They bombed the World Trade Center. The idea was to try to hit it on the edge and get one tower to topple into the other, which could have killed about 50,000 people if that had succeeded. And also during this time, this is December 1992 to February 1993, Anthrax was stolen from Fort Detrick, Maryland, which they had been doing gain of function research on, which they used to just call weaponization, from a lab. So it seemed like the plan was going to be to have a attack on the World Trade Center followed up by a biological weapons attack. They did not do the bio attack, but they did procure anthrax at that time. In 2001, that September 11th, they would destroy the World Trade Centers and follow it up with a biological weapons attack using anthrax. And we'll be talking about the anthrax again later, because it involves Dem Boyz and we can't talk about it on YouTube. But I just want you to know,
the left, guys. Sorry,
there he is. There's the Gitmo shot I see of KSM.
Right here, guys. This is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. This was the mastermind of 9/11. That was him. That's actually a photo taken at Guantanamo Bay after probably some waterboarding. And then Ramzi Yousef is this nigga put Randy Yousef. Yo, Ramzi Yousef is right there. You had it. You got it before. And then Ramzi Yousef is this guy. So KSM, guys, is the uncle of this dude. And this dude was the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And then KSM was the mastermind of 9/11. So you can see there's familial ties. So sorry.
That's right. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Ramzi Yousef. He was not caught right after the first World Trade Center bombing. A lot of them left. The idiot that rented the Ryder truck, they needed an address for the Ryder truck. When you rent a truck, you have to provide an address. Well, the apartment he was staying in was leased to him by a woman named Josie Hadass, and that's all I can say until we get to Rumble.
Yep.
But just ask me about that again.
So when Ramzi Yousef was renting the apartment?
No. One of the underlings that drove the truck. Okay. Ramzi Yousef gets away, and he actually attempted to bomb a plane going to Japan. He was in the Philippines, and he had a plot, the Bojinka plot, or the Millennial plot, where they were going to steal up to 16 airplanes and crash them into targets in the United States.
Okay.
They did not. He ended up getting caught and arrested before they could pull that off. But they knew that there was a plot to use airliners to attack targets in the United States. They knew that he had previously already tried to blow up the World Trade Center with a truck bomb. Mm-hmm. So later, when you see known terrorists who have been involved in, say, the USS Cole bombing attack and thing, who are living with their real names in California and going to flight schools, and they can't put together, even though the title given to everybody, State Department, FBI, is Bin Laden determined to attack America, and they couldn't visualize that he's going to use airplanes, even though the Al-Qaeda related operatives they had before had attacked the World Trade Center. And then you have hijackers going to flight schools that the CIA and the NSA knew about, and they pretend like they couldn't put it together that they're going to attack the World Trade Center with a plane.
Bam.
That's either an outrageous level of incompetence, which I guess is possible. It is the government, or it's collusion.
Yeah.
The irony, though, of him targeting targets is crazy.
Yeah. So what? Real quick to summarize for everybody. So, guys, you have the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, right? Which was done with a Ryder truck. They put a truck filled with explosives at the bottom of one of the towers. It blew up, but it didn't give the damage that they wanted. And then simultaneously,
parked in the wrong place. Yeah,
they parked in the wrong place. And then and Ramzi Yousef was the head of this attack. And then
he built the bomb. Yes.
Ryan, you're saying that they were manufacturing anthrax. Can you tell the people real quick, because a lot of Gen Zers might not know what anthrax is. What is anthrax?
So anthrax is a biological weapon that's spores. And so if you were to pack that powder, say, in an envelope and mail it to somebody, and they open it and poof, and they inhale anthrax, it'll kill them. Mm-hmm. And what they did is they took anthrax and they made it even more refined and added catalyst to it so that it would become more deadly. So that's gain of function. That's what they, the thing I'm not allowed to say, the other thing that they did gain of function research to in China. Let's just leave it there. So they can take something, a biological weapon or a virus, and they can make it more contagious or more potent. And so that's something they were working at. And a lot of the bioweapons research happens in Dugway and Dietrich. And Fort Dietrich's in Maryland. It's just a facility where the nasty stuff goes on. Mm-hmm. I'll let me tell you a quick story. So in the 90s, there was an Egyptian working at Fort Detrick named Ayad Assad. Mm-hmm. And he was being harassed by his coworkers. They had a little clique called the Camel Club, the leader of which was a man named Philip Zachariah. He's often known as Philip Zach. And they were harassing this Egyptian coworker because he was a Muslim, and this other group was not Muslim.
Yeah,
just Zachariah. Would you just take a guess?
Yep.
They did really asinine stuff to this man. They put a blow up camel, like a balloon of a camel with a dildo attached to it in his locker, and were always sabotaging him and harassing this guy. And so, because of this, several of them got fired. And Zachariah got fired from the lab for constantly harassing this Egyptian coworker. However, after he was fired, and this is on videotape, okay, he came back to Fort Detrick. A cohort who was in the Camel Club that had not been fired, named Dr. Miriam Rippey, let him in to the lab after hours to continue doing work on anthrax. And then by January 23rd, they realized, because there's a shuffling of the deck, wow, we're missing 26 different samples of anthrax. So we have a guy illegally doing work, gain of function work on anthrax, who's had been fired, who should not even be there. And then you have missing anthrax spores, anthrax vials.
Okay.
So, gee, I wonder who took them.
Okay. So
that just know that, because that's gonna come up again in 9/11.
Okay. So it's really important that everybody understands. So you had the World Trade Center attack in 1993, and then simultaneously anthrax is being stolen from the United States, not stolen from what we're going to talk about.
December 92 and January 93, they're stealing anthrax.
Okay, from the United States, which is very important. So keep that little fact in your head, guys, that the anthrax was from the United States and not from Iraq, which we're going to discuss later.
Yeah, even in the official story, they admit the anthrax came from U.S.'s own labs.
Bam. So that's a bombshell right there in itself.
But that's not how they started.
Yeah.
Right. First, they blamed Al-Qaeda. Then they blamed Iraq. And then they said they were working together. Later, they chased around Stephen Hatfield. And then they settled on Bruce Ivins. And then he coincidentally suicided before trial. And that was the end of that.
Okay. So, and for some of you guys that are saying who stole the anthrax, you just said it. It was an Egyptian guy that was working in a
The Egyptian guy didn't steal the anthrax. That's who they. No. The other not Egyptian, not Muslim person stole the anthrax. It was on tape. The Egyptian guy is the guy that they were harassing. They got fired for doing that because they did some. I didn't get into it, but I mean the blow up camel with the dildo. That's you can see the kind of stuff they were doing. They were sabotaging his work, just trying to get this guy to quit. Probably because he was the only one, not in the clique that wasn't a mole working for a certain state, right? But he didn't. Instead, a portion of them got fired, but Philip Zach came back into the lab after he'd been fired because another cohort let him in. She still got the key cards and opened the door, lets him in late in the night, and he's doing illegal research on anthrax.
I'm just curious.
Bad. What was the name of the guy that stole it again? I'm going to write his name down.
Philip Zachariah.
Yeah, and we know what he is.
I don't know.
He's better. Yeah, he is. And
I was able
better known as Philip Zach.
Philip Zach. Okay.
How was he able to
Yeah.
do it for so long though?
Steal
Going
the
into that,
Anthrax?
yeah, going into the office late night. Aren't the cameras there?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, he's on film. Like he got caught,
Okay,
and it didn't matter.
Come to YouTube. Sorry. Continue on.
cool. All right.
Okay, so Philip Zach, I'm writing that.
So we'll go over Philip Zach in way better detail when we don't have to walk on eggshells.
Okay.
Got it.
But all you guys need to know is Philip Zach is from
Dem Boyz.
Dem Boyz. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we'll move over to the Saudi connection. So we and this has all been, a lot of this stuff has been declassified now, guys, but Ryan has known this stuff since forever. I mean, well over a decade now at this point.
20 years.
So do you want to go into you want to talk about the Saudis overall, and then we go into the 1999 dry run? I'll turn it to you.
Well, that overlaps anyway, because the 1999 dry run was Saudis. So let's talk about the dry run.
Yeah.
So back in 1999, there was a plane that got grounded in Ohio because a couple of Saudi Arabians tried to force their way into the cockpit, and they were unsuccessful. But it's like, okay, the excuse was, I thought that was the bathroom or something. They'd traveled from Saudi Arabia to the US. They knew where bathrooms on planes were. They'd been told where it was, but they were just kind of testing out the security on the plane. It seemed like we don't know what they were going to end up doing because they were unsuccessful. But a lot of Al-Qaeda starts coming in around 98, 99, 2000, starts entering the US. These guys would be connected to Al-Qaeda recruiter. His name was, I have a clip for it, but his name was Zacario Sobra, and he worked out of Arizona to recruit Al-Qaeda members, and he actually drove them to the airport and did the rental car. And let's play the clip of the dry run, because this is going to be confusing with all the different Arabic names and things. That's why we did visuals. This is a clip from my film Empire Unmasked.
Okay. So
this has been out for a while. It's only like 2 minutes long, but let's get into it.
Yeah, let's run it for y'all.
Back in 1999, two men from Saudi Arabia, we'll call them Mak and Hash,
Enlarge it on their end, Chris.
forced a plane bound for Washington to ground itself in Ohio, where the men were arrested. Both men had trained at Al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan. Both were in contact with Al-Qaeda operatives, as well as the Saudi government, and both had their plane tickets paid for by the Saudi government. They tried multiple times to enter the cockpit, and their excuse to the FBI was, "We thought it was the bathroom." Even though they had asked their stewardess where the bathroom was, and she directed them to the back of the plane, they go to the front of they knew it was the cockpit. But that was a good enough excuse because the FBI let them go. Later, another Al-Qaeda suspect under investigation was discovered driving Mak's car. Why did he have his car? Perhaps because this Arizona Al-Qaeda recruiter is who drove them to the airport the day they got on the flight, where they ended up getting arrested for trying to enter the cockpit. Robert Mueller of the FBI, even after learning all about that and the Al-Qaeda training camps and contact with operational level operatives, was not interested in investigating or even interviewing these men. All they did was a dry one of 9/11. Who'd want to talk to them about that?
So Mueller wasn't the director when they did this stunt, but he was the director when the trial was going through.
Yeah.
And they claimed, oh, we're being persecuted because of racism or whatever. They let him go. Now, there's a couple news articles there on the screen. I think the first one is from Press TV, and there's one from the New York Post.
And this stuff
talking
came
about
out
the dry
after
run.
your movie, by the way.
Oh, they didn't put these articles out till 2017, I think.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
and after documents were declassified. So just to summarize for the people, So basically, you had two guys, right? Two Saudi Arabians that tried to do a dry run in 1999, and they were dropped off at the airport by Zachariah, who was a documented member of Al-Qaeda and had trained
an Al-Qaeda recruiter. Yes,
an Al-Qaeda recruiter, and the car was rented by him as well, if I'm not mistaken. Right? He was a driver that
he was driving the car, and he still had the car after they got arrested.
Damn. So you got a recruiter from Al-Qaeda dropping off two Saudis to do a dry run in 1999, which is very important, guys. Do you want to get into the Saudi money movement now?
Well, let me tell you one more thing on this one.
Please.
So there's a document below that New York Post article on the tab that you just had, which was declassified in 2015. Think how long this is, right? So they write articles in the Post and Press TV and others in 2017. But if you go below that, a couple.
Was this one it? Or no, we got to
below the Post.
Keep going.
So that's keep going down a little bit.
Down.
It'll have a number
Right
12
there.
next to it. All right, right there, freeze. You can actually click on that and it'll go to what was submitted to the 9/11 Commission, but they didn't include it.
Go to page.
And you can see there, declassified July 8th, 2015. And there's a lot more you can see besides these fellas if you keep going down.
One more page, I think it is. Right. Is it that
one?
one?
There's Bayumi and Basnan. We're going to talk about them. So we're on number 12. So they were telling them a little bit more information that these guys specifically had trained. There you go, number 12. So that's I call them Mach and Hosh. If you're just taking the first letter, M-A, Q, and H.
And just so this is a declassified document from the FBI, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ryan?
So this was submitted to the 9/11 Commission. Okay. And it's the same information is also in the Senate investigation. Yeah. But this is the one that got declassified in 2015. Okay. And they talk about the Khobar Tower attack, which was a building in Saudi Arabia that was housing U.S. Air Force personnel, and that was hit with a truck bomb, and 19 Americans were killed. That was in 1995, and most people have never heard of it.
Okay, so what I'll do is, since we got audio people that are listening to us, I'll go ahead and read this point 12 real fast. Hit Control Plus real fast. Yep. And this is a declassified document for y'all. So Mohammed we'll just call him AQ. And then you got HS, right? The two guys that we just talked about that did the dry run. It goes AQ and
I'm Dam al-Shawali.
Yeah, I'll just say the two Saudis. We're both Saudi students living in the Phoenix area. Q was receiving funding from the Saudi government during his time in Phoenix. Q and Al-Shahawi were involved in a 1999 incident aboard an America West flight that the FBI's Phoenix office now believes may have been a dry run for the September 11th attacks. The two were traveling to Washington, D.C. to attend a party at the Saudi embassy. The Saudi embassy paid for their airfare. According to FBI documents, during the flight, they engaged in suspicious behavior, including several attempts to gain access to the cockpit. The plane made an emergency landing in Ohio, but no charges were filed against either individual. The FBI subsequently received information in November 2000 that Al-Shalawi had been trained at the terrorist camps in Afghanistan to conduct Khobar Tower type attacks, and the FBI has also developed information tying Q to terrorist elements as well. And this is stuff that came way after the fact, guys. 14 years later, you know, they declassified this stuff with Saudi Arabian links to 9/11.
And now they didn't mention Zakawi, or they didn't mention what I was just showed you in that clip, but they will later in the document. So what they do here is they just sort of summarize all the players, and then later you'll get more information. And then that information came out again in 2017 out of the blue. They're suddenly interested in this story, and you see it in New York Times, New York Post, Press TV, and so on.
Mm-hmm. It's funny.
So it's I just want people to know this, because sometimes people are looking for information that's already out. Like we have 9/11 victims' families suing for information we already have.
Yeah.
People don't know we have the information because Melonhead Jones goes, gets everyone barking up the wrong tree, and the disinformation is strong because people like me get censored. But if you're like just saying what amounts to nothing, just be like Illuminati, NWO, Luciferian, blah, 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 then it doesn't matter. But if you're going to start naming names of, I guess what Zoomers would call the Matrix, what you and I might call the system.
Yeah,
I will name names. I'm not going to say the globalist. That's too generic. Or the Luciferians, or the New World Order, or the Deep State, or I'm going to say their names.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah,
they get in
They
trouble.
put you in a box, but you actually call the names. But I had a question for Myron.
Yeah.
If someone brought to you this case where these guys were on a plane trying to get in the cockpit, how would you respond to that? Because the guy just brushed it off.
Yeah,
like nothing happened.
and here's the thing: the FBI tried to investigate it, but the director told them to back off.
What does that mean?
That's well. Here's the thing: Saudi Arabia, we get a lot of our oil from them. They're a partner.
Mhm.
I find it funny how we started declassifying the documents with the Saudi Arabian involvement once they started to threaten to go to BRICS. If y'all notice, stuff about Saudi Arabia gets declassified when 9/11. Anytime they threaten that they're going to go and get themselves with the Chinese and the Russians for that currency. I mean, that's what I've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed that trend too, Ryan.
Yeah, that happened in 2021 also. Like they start flirting with the Saudi role in 9/11 every time they break from the U.S. plan. They won't produce more oil if there's OPEC and OPEC plus.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, but the new crown prince doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
And the Chinese have negotiated, we're going to see a peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia. They've had a long proxy war in Yemen. It's horrible for the people of Yemen. You know, MSNBC, you know how many times they mentioned the war in Yemen in the last year and a half?
How many?
Zero.
Zero times. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about, and the other thing too, as well, I want everybody to kind of take away from this 1999 dry run why it's so important. They were funded by the Saudi government, guys. All their stuff was being paid for by the Saudi government. So we're going to see another Saudi link coming up now. Now we're going to talk about some money movement, which is going to blow your guys' mind. Okay.
Yeah. The biggest thing there is like, okay, Saudi Arabia paid for their airline tickets. They don't know they're going to hijack the plane. But once you found out that they had trained in Afghanistan and Al-Qaeda, training camps, then you should have said, whoa, wait a minute. You did that and you tried to hijack an airplane.
Yep.
They should be in jail. I mean, at minimal, right?
So,
after 9/11 happens, did they come down on Robert Mueller? No, they needed him to lie about Russia and everything else later, right? So
exactly.
It gets far more damning than that, though. So we can get into you can play the clip first if you want.
All right. So now, guys, we're going to transition to the next chapter. What this is going to be the money.
This one will also go over a little bit of like why you don't know this, because the truth community is just filled with charlatans and grifters. So I'll give you a minute on that, and then we're going to get into really damning information showing concrete evidence that Al-Qaeda definitely had covert state support.
Bam. All right, let's run the clip.
9/11 truth has been running around in circles. The investigative path has centered on the what and not the who. The inquiry was derailed away from the logistics and financing, post-attack anthrax and invasions, which cover means and motive, over to hair-splitting rants about physics, mainly Building 7. This, hey, just asking questions group quickly devolved into discrediting nonsense ranging from pods and missiles to futuristic energy weapons and miniature nukes in the buildings, living hijackers, and even holograms. Unwilling to be associated with the paranoids and kooks, many more rational people keep their view about 9/11 private. There is also something off-putting about the way 9/11 noobs preach their spoon-fed talking points with the same zeal as a religious cult, CrossFit vegan Bitcoin buyers' pushiness and dogmatism. There's no reason to run in circles. There's a lot of evidence showing a cover-up. There's a lot of evidence showing the CIA's counterintelligence, the same people who covertly supported ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria and Libya, who with other foreign states backed Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and lied about Iraq, were protecting Al-Qaeda on 9/11. A year ago, the U.S. Senate finally released a formally redacted 28-page section of the Senate's investigation into 9/11.
Pause real quick.
Called the JIS report. The content.
Pause the video. Guys, for all the audience, pay attention to what Ryan's about to break down in this video. This is super important stuff, and it's all declassified from the JIS. It comes from official stuff, so please pay attention.
And I had it out before they declassified that.
That's another important thing. He had this out first. So, guys, pay attention to the links. Let's roll the clip. Continue on, Chris.
It covers state-sponsored financial support for 9/11 hijackers. This information was already known and explained in my film, The Empire Unmasked. Saudi Arabian state officials financed 9/11 hijackers through intermediaries. This is Prince Bandar bin Sultan, more widely known by his nickname, Bandar Bush, given to him because of his close ties with the Bush family. He was the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. at the time of 9/11. His wife gave money to the wife of Osama Basnan, a man who idolized Osama bin Laden. Basnan's wife gave money to the wife of Omar Bayoumi, who gave financial support to and briefly lived with two 9/11 hijackers, Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar, who were both on Flight 77, who had both fought in Bosnia and who had both fought in Chechnya before, and both of whom went to an Al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia, and both of whom had lived with briefly Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the Al-Qaeda mastermind of 9/11. Prince Bandar eventually became the Director of General Intelligence for Saudi Arabia, like Saudi Arabia's CIA. This was a position held for a long time by his wife's brother, Prince Turki bin Faisal Assad. Prince Turki, with his uncle, set up institutions to help the CIA launder money to proxy forces, including Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Pakistan's ISI also joined the US, CIA, and the Saudis in these efforts.
Guys, holy! And hold on, we could keep playing. Right?
By the way, before you play the rest of it, I wanted to point out the JAS report did not admit the KSM connection. They did admit the financing trail, but they didn't admit that the CIA knew they had gone to Malaysia to the Al-Qaeda summit meeting. That would come later from Private Manning's leaks on WikiLeaks, as well as the Encore files. So I put it all together, and you can see that I'm sliding it in the KSM. Here's his tag number, and I'm showing you those documents. And you're willing to go back and pause that and read, because I know it goes too fast to read all that. I'm just showing, I'm just put them in there to be like, look, here it is.
Yeah.
Pause it and read it as you see fit.
You're not just pulling this out of your ass. This is coming from declassified documents, right? And you're summarizing it for them visually so they see it.
Yeah, this is a combination from the JAS report and the Manning leaks together. And then I have some other sources that corroborate it, but that's just
what's in there. You wanted to play the rest of that video, Ryan? Was there something else?
Sure. Oh yeah, there's some good stuff.
Play, Chris, pull it back up real quick and fast forward a little bit. There's a little bit of a dark spot so that we can talk, but go ahead and.
But you know what's impressive?
What?
He's able to pull documents that you could like identify with, and this means that you're an agent, so you know firsthand what this means. Behind the scenes. Which is pretty dope.
Add it to stream real quick. Fast forward a little bit, Chris, on that video. Hit play, and then. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So this will show you the ring from. So you have Princess Haifa.
You look at that symbol.
Osama Basnan and Marie Dalquette to the wife of Omar Bayoumi, and that goes to Al Hazmi and
and then we go real fast forward.
Who got canceled?
Who paid the hijackers?
Wait, go back like 10 seconds, Chris.
Introduced to the 9/11 hijackers.
So they hear a little bit more. Okay. We'll just let it roll, and then enlarge the screen for them.
A bin Laden enthusiast, Bandar's wife paid the wife of Osama Basnan, who paid the wife of Omar Bayoumi, who paid the hijackers. Basnan was introduced to the 9/11 hijackers by Omar Bayoumi. Basnan moved in and lived across the street from the hijackers. His wife used the CIA's longtime favorite Riggs Bank to pay the wife of Omar Bayoumi. Omar met with the hijackers in LA and got them an apartment. He signed their lease and lived with them for the first month.
Pause real quick.
Omar was also...
Those two guys you saw on the right, guys, were the hijackers, okay? And the other guy on the left was basically funding their stay, and he's involved with the Saudi government, just so you guys understand.
They're on Flight 77 that ends up hitting the Pentagon. And did you notice I even got a picture of their apartment?
Yep. So just so you guys know, that's a Saudi official on the left, right? To simplify this, because I know some of y'all on the chat are saying, these Arab names are confusing me. I'll make it stupid proof for y'all.
Stupid.
The guy on the left is a Saudi government official, okay? He was paying and sponsoring the two guys on the right who were hijackers on the plane that hit the Pentagon on September 11th, 2001. Okay, guys? Let's keep rolling the clip.
the first month. Omar was also a ghost employee for Erkan, a Saudi front, which paid him leading up to 9/11. His contacts also assisted the hijackers. The CIA already knew Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar were bad news, yet they traveled to the U.S. using their real names, and the CIA didn't inform the FBI. The Senate investigation on this matter relied heavily, if not exclusively, on FBI field office reports from different regions, with their focus primarily being on the 2 West Coast hijackers. But what about the other 17 hijackers? And what about the other full field investigation reports on 9/11, particularly from New York, New Jersey, and Florida, where 15 of them lived? The reason I knew and preemptively released the information the Senate had redacted and kept from the public for 15 years is because I used FOIAs to read the same primary sources that they did. There's much more on the Saudi role in 9/11 not contained in the 28 pages. And more importantly, they were not the only state actor. There are 1,800 pages worth of full field investigation reports of...
Okay, so he's going to start talking a little bit about another link. What you guys are seeing right here are FBI 302s, guys. FBI 302s are reports of investigation. As y'all can see, there's a bunch of redactions in it, but this isn't coming out of...
I was able to unredact a lot of it doing what I call Rosetta Stone work.
Okay. So he's going to talk a little bit more about those other guys. So we'll continue the clip here, but just so you guys know, what's showing on screen right here are official FBI reports of investigation, also known as 302s. Okay, and I know this from being a federal agent myself with HSI. I've read hundreds of these things because when you work with the FBI, they give you their reports, you give them yours. So that's what these are.
Not to be confused with 304s.
Yeah, these are 302s. Yes.
In 9/11. And it goes well beyond the infamous dancing is art students firing. Had at least 5 different moving companies they used as fronts, one of which was used by a 9/11 hijacker. Like the Saudis, they too lived next door to and followed around 9/11 hijackers. The Mossad celebrated the 9/11 attacks. In fact, 2 operatives were the first cousins of the pilot who hijacked Flight 93. But it goes much...
Pause, because that... Okay, I know we're laughing about the bell, but that is crucial. Okay, a 9/11 hijacker has first cousins in intelligence.
Yep.
And yeah, so
audience, like, hold on. Let me emphasize that one more time. That guy on the right was a hijacker. His first cousin, okay, works for a certain agency that Dem Boyz is aligned with. Please explain to me how you're a Saudi Arabian that hates the United States and you're part of Al-Qaeda, but your cousin works for... Which we're going to talk about this in way more detail.
He had 2 cousins involved in that. Yeah.
Sounds like an inside.
Yes. And we have proof, by the way, for you guys on when we go to Rumble, because we can't talk about it for obvious reasons. But yes. Okay, let's continue on.
It's much deeper than that.
And then these are more declassified documents showing how they were assisted by the Saudi state.
So you can see there in yellow, sort of the juicy parts, right? He admitted to an FBI asset that he met Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar. And I actually have still shots. So if you go back to the tab where the videos are, I just underneath the video, it's you know, a little bit bigger, easier to read. It'll talk about Omar al-Bayoumi and Osama Basnan. That's the main 2. Forget about their wives. They're just, you know, doing their bidding, really.
Yeah.
Now, Bayoumi, dead to rights, was a huge bin Laden fan, and the FBI suspected him. Basnan, they don't know as much about, but clearly there's a pipeline from Saudi intelligence to these men through their wives to Al-Qaeda hijackers. So they gave them logistical support and they gave them financial support. They could barely speak English, these 2. And so, I mean, they got them an apartment. They live with them. Basnan ends up living across the street from them. That's a lot to just give some random immigrants, you know. And there was actually an informant in the Kurdish mosque, Stephen Butler, I believe his name was. So that they'd heard phone calls. There's so much other corroborating evidence. Well, they did not release this and wouldn't release this until about 2017, and I actually went to Washington to lobby to get the 28 pages unredacted. I talked to a DoD leaker. But after it was released, nothing happened, because everybody in the 9/11 truth movement is obsessed with Building 7 and thermite and whatever. And it's like okay, look here right now, and we're going to get into Dem Boyz, but already you have covert state support for 9/11 hijackers. Now you can chalk it up to incompetence. You'd be like, hey man, they just saw some couple Muslim boys that couldn't speak English and they thought they'd just give them a house. And yet these guys had already been involved in terror attacks abroad, and they're going to flight schools. Come on. Like, I'm not taking the incompetence excuse.
Yep.
That's
and they
crazy.
came to the United States. These Saudi guys, the U.S., just to summarize for y'all, the United States knew about these two Saudi hijackers. They knew that they had attended Al-Qaeda camps, and they came to the United States on their real names.
Yeah.
Right. And
one of them got a job at a gas station. He's the only one that worked, by the way. But I'll tell you this too.
Yeah.
I'll play devil's advocate to myself. The FBI allegedly didn't know what the CIA knew. The CIA didn't share the information about them going to an Al-Qaeda summit meeting.
Yeah.
Or any of that with the FBI until August. And then just in a broad, vague way that didn't mean anything. So like, the beginning of September is too late, and they'd already moved to the east. The way the field offices work, this is real petty, but they do compete with each other as who can nab the big fish and stuff. Just like you can think of it. Anybody in the military will tell you this. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they all compete over budgets, right?
Yep.
And the intelligence agencies, there's all the little 3-letter networks. They want to be the one that gets the guy, the NSA,
Absolutely.
the DHS, the CIA. And so sometimes they don't share information. It's like, guys, you're supposed to be stopping terrorist attacks, not, getting a ribbon on your chest for nailing so-and-so. And the same thing with narco traffic. They're not sharing info and for this petty one-upmanship. So a little bit could have been that, but dude, no information like this. Wow, we've got Al-Qaeda operatives and they're going to flight schools. You're going to tell the FBI.
And
right? They didn't tell them because the whole point was to get the war of terror to replace the Cold War and act as a pretext for trillions of dollars of budgetary spending, fighting endless wars for the interests of with who has the giant blackmail rings that we went over the other day with these guys. And you could really do a fire drill with this poster because it's just ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding all through that too.
Yep.
This is how they compromise people.
Yep.
Right. That network, there's more news out today about Epstein. We had a good show on that the other day, and that's something we could talk about forever too. There is a relationship between this group and 9/11 going all the way back to the theft of uranium. Actually, that's the long story, but we're going to stick to the Saudi role for now because we're still on YouTube.
And I want to say this real quick, just for the audience to understand. Everything Ryan said is 100% true. When I was an agent, right, all the agencies are extremely competitive, right? If I did a drug case or whatever, DEA wouldn't share information a lot of the times. I mean, hell, the whole Homeland Security was made because agencies weren't sharing information. It's still common where agencies want to get the credit, et cetera. The reason why everything is compartmentalized is that so that agencies work and compete against each other to make cases. So the thing is, though, is that if you got terrorists in the United States, that is automatically FBI jurisdiction. CIA deals with terrorism outside the United States. FBI deals with terrorists in the States. So the fact that the CIA didn't notify the FBI about these guys being in the United States, knowing that they had been attending Al-Qaeda camps, is a travesty. The other thing, too, I want to say, Ryan, is weren't these guys a part of an op by the CIA that got declassified called Enable Danger, these two Saudis?
Yeah, so we'll get into that when we're not on YouTube too.
Oh,
that one thing is they never should have gotten visas anyway, right? A lot of these guys got fast track visas, a new fast track program out of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, which nobody agreed with, but somehow they get in. And this harkens back to 93. And I didn't go over this because I super summarized it, but I'll say it now. When Ramzi Yousef came, and the man he came with, his passport forgery was so bad, like the picture that he put on top of another picture was slipping off. This is how Three Stooges this was. Well, he gets arrested, but Ramzi Yousef doesn't, right? He never should have got a visa. Then they both should have got arrested at the airport. But nobody touches Yousef because you're going to find out something about him. And then He gets a ride from a Pakistani cab driver all the way to the mosque. No, you don't have to pay money. It was like so many coincidences for that event to have happened successfully, including pulling their informant, their mole, out of the cell that was making a bomb.
That's crazy.
And again, we have a 40-minute video of that coming out on Rumble tomorrow with Adam Fitzgerald, myself, explaining the nitty gritty, and it'll go back to familiar faces there.
Yo, I'm soaking this in because this is crazy. But
I told y'all we were gonna go in here.
I had to make a note as well.
We're not even on Rumble yet.
So you're telling,
I mean, you can watch it on Rumble right now, but the handcuffs, I don't get my handcuffs off until we're off of YouTube. So I do not want to be responsible for getting your channel
America
open.
On a visa.
Yep.
And instead of going to 7-Eleven, I went to 9/11. I'm like, bro, that's crazy, right?
This guy fresh, bro.
Anyhow, we can continue.
All right. So now fresh with the terrible jokes. So we covered just to summarize, just for
actually the gas station he worked at was a 7-Eleven.
See, I'm on my shit, bro. See, man, give me some credit, bro.
So we got almost 10,000 watching live on Rumble. We got another 5,500 watching on YouTube. So let's quickly summarize because I see that you guys are piling into the show. What did we talk about so far? Rewind the show. So we covered overview, right? We introduced Ryan Dawson. We introduced how he got all this information from 9/11, top 9/11 researcher. Then we went into the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, right, with Ramzi Yousef. We went into KSM. We also went into Anthrax being stolen by Philip Zach, a.k.a. one of them boys, and the fact that it was manufactured in the United States. Keep that in your head, guys, because we're going to cover Anthrax again once we go into Rumble. So, and then we also covered the Saudi Arabians with their dry run in 1999. We looked at declassified documents that did in fact show that these guys were trying to do a dry run in 1999. The director of the FBI at the time, Robert Mueller, pretty much called off the investigation for purposes of them being biased or
the director during the time of the trial.
Yes. And then after that, we went ahead and covered the Saudi money movement in 2001, where two Saudi Arabians who were known to be Al-Qaeda members came to the United States on their real names. The CIA knew about them, and they were supported by Saudi government, and money was moved through intermediaries to them. And some of these guys had, links to Osama bin Laden, etc. So that's kind of where we're at. So we covered the Saudi connection, and next we're going to go into, let's see here.
By the way, they moved the money through Riggs Bank. Riggs Bank is responsible for the Federal Reserve. Most people think that's the Aldrich bill in Jekyll Island, and they know that portion of the story. But those guys didn't write the bill. They got that info from the boys at Riggs, who gave it to them. And so there's a layer even above the Jekyll Island crew, and that was the traditional OSS CIA money laundering outfit. It was out of Riggs, and they went after BCCI got canceled in the 90s. They went right back to their roots.
Bam.
Just adding a layer on one of the greatest conspiracies of creating the central bank. By the way, first income tax is not from the Fed, and it's not from the 16th Amendment. It was from Lincoln.
Guys, if you know a trend here, there's truth and conspiracy. That's a big trend here.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point, it's not even a conspiracy. We actually have real documents here proving what Ryan is saying. And by the way, just so you guys know.
Can I say something on that about conspiracy itself?
Please.
Because this is also an empire. I don't have a clip handy, but people tend to err too far one direction or the other, right? Conspiracies happen. Iran-Contra was a conspiracy. People got convicted of conspiracy. Operation Gladio is a conspiracy. Like these are known, admitted events. You got conspiracy in white-collar crime and in the mafia. It is something that happens. However, that doesn't mean you just have absolutely no filter and believe every conspiracy that comes down the pipe, right? So as it would be wrong to just accept everything, it's also wrong to reject everything. And what happens is the goofy stuff comes out, and then people overcorrect and say, well, they've heard so many dumb conspiracies that they categorically dismiss, conspiracy, that means it can't happen. Don't do that. Conspiracies are a way of life. I mean, the Nord Stream pipeline bombing, right? That's a conspiracy. I don't know if that's going to get you in trouble on YouTube or not, but there's plenty of modern examples of the Mexican beer and other things where, look, conspiracies happen all the time. Every covert operation that whether it's or MI6 or the CIA or whomever does is a conspiracy. You got a bunch of people doing something secretly that otherwise would be considered illegal, and it's called a covert operation. What is that? They are conspiring to commit crimes or conspiring to spy, steal, sabotage, etc. So governments do this.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Contra affair I bring up is a good example because some of us were alive when that happened, and it's very similar to the covert state sponsorship of Al-Qaeda in 9/11, and then again in Syria with ISIS.
Bam.
Rumble?
No, yeah. So we're gonna go to Rumble here in a little bit because we're about to start getting into them boys. So real quick, Ryan, did you want to talk about the explosives in the trucks first, and then we go over to Rumble, or did you want to go right now?
I think that's safe as long as we avoid the bell.
Okay.
Okay. So can we go into that a little bit on Alex Station before we get to the truck bombings?
Yes, we definitely can. So let's go ahead. So guys, just so set this up for y'all. So we covered the Saudi situation. Now we're going to cover Alex Station. You guys are probably wondering, what the fuck is Alex Station? Alex Station was a group of analysts from the CIA that were responsible for tracking and investigating Osama bin Laden. Okay, guys. And we're going to kind of summarize the Alex Station fuck up here. Because they basically didn't notify the FBI of what the hell was going on when they had information that 9/11 was imminent. So we'll go ahead.
They allowed an invalid who they knew was incompetent to be in charge of one of the most important, people that the bin Laden unit, right? And he hires pretty much exclusively all female staff, and the odds of them all getting there through merit pretty low, right? So there were some studs. There were some women in there that did get the right information, and no one listened to them. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's play this clip. Now, this is something, if you're listening on your phone or whatever, you might want to look at the screen.
Yeah.
Unless Myron wants to read it.
I can read it out loud. That's cool.
And the mods, can you put the link to Rumble in the chat, please?
Yeah, put the link, because we're going to switch here.
Yeah, get ready.
Yeah, get ready.
When we get to Rumble, I'm going to go nuts. I'm like, I can't say this. I can't say that. Ugh.
All right, let's go ahead and run it. All right, so from the JIS report. All right, pause real quick, Chris. All right, from the JIS report, joint inquiry into the terrorist attacks of September 11th by the House and Senate Select Committees on Intelligence, we know that the CIA counterintelligence was aware of 2 future 9/11 hijackers attending an Al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia. They had their names and pictures. Later, the CIA tried to deny that they knew Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was also at this meeting, but cables shared from Private Manning to WikiLeaks proved otherwise. Flight 77 hijackers Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Menhar entered the U.S. using their real names, but the CIA did not alert the FBI. Once in California, the hijackers were assisted by a man named Omar Bayoumi. Bayoumi had been employed by the Hamid al-Rashid of the Saudi Arabian government. In a raid on an Al-Qaeda safe house in Karachi, a photo was found of Saud al-Rashid, Hamid's son. It's circumstantial, but still suspicious. The FBI issued a report on Bayoumi in 1998 because he had been in contact with several FBI suspects. Bayoumi also moved $400,000 from Saudi Arabia to build a Kurdish mosque in San Diego. Adel Rafia, an administrator at this mosque, allowed his bank account to receive funds on behalf of hijacker al-Hazmi. And those two Saudi links to Saudi hijackers. And then Omar met the hijackers shortly after they arrived in LA at a restaurant and allowed them to live in his apartment. He then signed the lease and paid the first month's rent for the hijackers' own apartment in San Diego and moved into a place in the same neighborhood. He introduced them to Osama Bassan, who lived across the street from the house and whose wife, Majida Duikat, will become a bag man in a chain of money transfers, which we went over a little bit.
Can you pause a second?
Yeah.
So just to add, they met him in Culver City, which I just can think that's part of LA. Some people say otherwise, but it's really funny how they met. He just randomly meets them in a restaurant first day they land, right? And it's like, they weren't told to go to the restaurant to meet this guy, right? So they go to this restaurant and he meets him. Oh, who are you guys? Oh, you need a house? Here you go. I mean, the story is ridiculous.
It's wild. So it goes, Haifa bin Faiza. Go ahead, you can continue, Chris. The sister of Safari Club founder Turki bin Faisal and wife to Bandar bin Sultan or Bandar Bush, the future head of Saudi General Intelligence, sent payments through Riggs Bank to Osama Bassan's wife, Majida Duikat, who then wrote checks to Manal Bajadar, the wife of Bayoumi, who was assisting the hijackers. Guys, crazy shit right there. All right. Also sending money were two men, Ammar al-Baluchi, the nephew of KSM, the mastermind of 9/11, and Mustafa al-Hawasawi, both landed in Gitmo with KSM. Despite torture, Ammar still claims innocence. He transferred Manwar al-Sheni's money to al-Shehi. He claims ignorance.
Al-Shehi's on flight 175. He's a 9/11 hijacker.
Okay.
And they were moving money out of the UAE to him.
So
go ahead.
Just a question. With all these paper trails here, why wasn't this car earlier?
Well, I mean, as you saw, they knew about Bayumi in '98 before the dry run even. And look, you know, one conclusion you can come up with is either they are that dumb or it's collusion. They wanted this to happen.
So we go here. He claims ignorance of the plot and having ever talked to Atta. And just so you guys know, Mohammed Atta was the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks. Okay.
Yeah, he's on flight 11 that hit the north side of the North Tower.
Okay. So
and he was very intelligent. I mean, an engineer, spoke English. He's the ringleader for sure.
It's interesting that all of these men are locked away in special site, but the other financiers and handlers just walk free. It appears the decision was, let them pull off this attack, in fact, help them do it, then we'll arrest them and ignore our own role in it. Why did the CIA share information about Al-Qaeda operatives living in America with the FBI? The men responsible for withholding this information were George Tenet, Richard Blee, and Khobar Black. Counterterrorism Cesar, Richard Clark accused them of a cover-up. In the best-case scenario, CIA, ever the juvenile rival of the FBI, simply didn't want the FBI to nab the Al-Qaeda operatives because perhaps the CIA was trying to turn one of them in order to get a man inside Al-Qaeda. After all, these men had fought in Bosnia, Chechnya, and Afghanistan against America's enemies. All the killing was okay then. The hijacker simply played along and then double-crossed the CIA. Which, guys, just so y'all understand, just so you guys know, this is not the first time where the CIA has supported people that came to be terrorists later on. Y'all might not know this, but I covered this before. In the 80s, we gave money and support to Osama bin Laden to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. That's a fact, documented. Okay? So this is not the first time that the United States has aided people that, you know, came back and attacked us later.
Yeah.
You can just hit play now because my voice will take care of the rest of it.
All right, go ahead. You could hit.
There's the counterterrorism czar, and by the way, in one of his books, there's an interesting incident where Tenet's drunk in his pool saying the J's double crossed us. The F and J's.
Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. You can play it, Chris.
Jehovah's Witness.
Pause real quick.
It's unprofessional and incompetent, but it's still better than the alternative explanation. The CIA was supporting the operation and incompetence was their deniability. So if you remember Ali North's Iran-Contra, we had needed to have plausible deniability, right?
Yep.
Given the CIA's behavior with the East Coast hijackers, including the ringleader Mohammed Atta, who the CIA and the Pentagon had been following ever since they were in Hamburg, Germany, and whose phones they had tapped and whose cell numbers they had, which they still did not share with the FBI. The most plausible explanation is that these men were shielded on purpose. Furthermore, in 2001, the CIA's Bin Laden unit, Alex Station, reduced the FBI's access to NSA material tracking Al-Qaeda members.
That is fucking huge.
Right.
That they restricted the FBI's access to national security, to NSA material tracking Al-Qaeda. As you guys know, NSA is really big with exploiting phones and phone numbers.
The NSA had tapped the Yemen cell. I just say that now because it's not in the video for some reason, but and they weren't sharing that.
Yep.
So it's just too much to chalk up to screw up.
Yeah, they were watching Mohammed Atta as well, guys. Just so y'all know, they were watching him since he was in Germany in the fucking 90s. Okay, so again,
well, you know, he had a bagman. I don't think this is in this clip, but Mohammed Atta had a bagman from Morocco who would later get caught in Syria, and they threw him in jail. And his name was Haidar Zemmar.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually was released from jail in a prisoner swap during the Syrian war, where they needed to get Syrian officers out of prison. And so who does ISIS want? They want a 9/11 hijackers bagman gets out of prison he was with Aral al-Sham, I believe, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And in this United States is supporting the Free Syrian Army and what they kept calling the moderate rebels, who got a 9/11 plotter out of prison.
Wow.
You can't even, and that, like,
make this up.
Nobody covered that other than RT and some newspapers. It wasn't on television, and it's kind of pre-Tucker, although he's been fired too now.
Yep. Okay, so I'll finish reading this off, and then we'll transition here a bit. There's just too much to chalk up to a screw up the Saudi royals. Oh, you have something, Ryan? Please.
Well, I referenced the Safari Club in this text, which was in the film. I already explained what that was. So y'all, if you get Empire Mass, you can get even more, but it's kind of overkill. Like this is already proven the case, but you know, why not hammer it home?
Yeah. I put the link in the chat for Rumble as well.
For YouTube,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, because we're going to switch here in a little bit. And shit's about to get real when we go over to Rumble. Okay, the Saudi royals were simply working with the CIA counterintelligence office as they had done for decades, and the U.S. simply covered it up. Everyone knew too much. Was the brass of CIA just motivated by enormous wealth the war on terror would create for the military industrial complex, or had they been also persuaded by a foreign power? This sadly seems to be the case. So again, guys, you had all this information out there and they didn't do anything. And it gets even crazier when we find out who allowed this to be facilitated as well. So do you want to go into the truck bombs, Ryan, and then we switch over?
Yeah, so this is what this will give you goosebumps, probably. Right below this, well, you can skip the clip about idiots and Anthrax because that's going to be Rumble. But if you scroll down to secondary explosions, police find a van with an explosive device. And this is reported by Pat Dawson, no relation to me, just happens to have the same last name, as well as Rick Sanchez. And then you'll see a series of reports. I've cut it up into 2 videos. This one is about the secondary explosions. And then specifically, what caused the secondary explosions? It appears to have been very similar to 93. They put bombs in trucks and they went and parked those in the parking garages in the basement level of the towers.
Yep.
So that's why everybody's seeing the whole subway's full of smoke and they're hearing bombs below at the same time the planes hit above or slightly before, actually. So go ahead and roll that.
All right.
Is close to the scene of that attack, Pat.
Just moments ago, I spoke to the chief of safety
black
for the
screen?
New York City Fire Department.
Wait, hold on, pause.
You know what?
It's supposed to be playing video, right?
Refresh.
I will give you. I think I uploaded the wrong thing. I'll just edit it right now as we go. So I can say what happened is Myron and I saw this before. It was like only audio, and I resaved
dude, if you want. Do you know the timestamp? We could play. I got the tab open.
Hold on, I can get you the timestamp. Just a second. Okay. That might be faster.
While he does that,
this is why we had backup. We had Empire Mass up. I'm opening Premiere right now.
We do it live. So let me go ahead and while you pull that up, Ryan, I'll give the guys a quick little summary real fast. Just so you guys understand, back in 1993, right, you had trucks that were loaded with explosives that were parked in the basement, and the goal was to basically knock the basement down so the building would fall upon itself, right, and fall down. In 2001, they did this again. Now, I know a lot of y'all are like, wait, what are you talking about, Myron, etc. A bunch of people at the crime scene, including firefighters and witnesses, guys, all of them say bombs went off in the first floor and in the basement level of the World Trade Center. Now, I know a lot of people, the conspiracy theorists out here are going to say, wait, Myron, hold on. But it was controlled demolition. They put dynamite in all the floors before, blah, 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 which we're going to talk about that later on in more detail. But the thing you guys really need to understand is it's pretty much verified at this point that there were trucks parked at the bottom, right, just like the 1993 attempt, okay, and that would play a critical role with the building falling on top of itself. And there were other factors as well, which I can't talk about here, but we're going to talk about in more detail on Rumble why the damage was so bad and how the towers actually fell. But what I want you guys to focus on is the fact that there were, in fact, bombs in the basement, as said by witnesses. And then on top of that, which was not reported in the news, the police and the feds did find a truck loaded with explosives in the basement that did not go off. And you guys do not hear about this in the mainstream media for obvious reasons. We're going to talk about that because it's linked to certain people, okay? that we're going to go into more detail about. But do you have that clip?
So if you go to Empire and you go to 3 hours and 16 minutes and 16 seconds,
right,
I think that's where that
3 hours,
starts.
3:16, aka Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, or John 3:16.
All right, let's go ahead and pull that up, Chris. And this is from his movie, guys, Empire on Mass. Fantastic documentary.
You should watch it. It's really
5
good.
hours plus. We're summarizing a lot of it for you guys here on this broadcast. But yeah, let's roll the clip.
Mujahideen to ISIS, the U.S. and their
larger, Chris.
It'll start at 16 seconds. Just play is easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Play it through.
Yeah.
Safari Club partners have been aiding Al-Qaeda groups. When you understand the history, 9/11 is not that shocking.
I'm going to show you some live clips about the truck bombings in case you never saw them, forgot about them, or don't believe me. And also pay attention to these live reports about explosions at the base, the lobby, the basement of the building. These are reports from eyewitnesses, survivors, firemen, police, and the FBI. This would all get a nice church-off whitewashing and be replaced by pancake theories on one extreme and disinformation ranging from everything from Bavarian death cults to space aliens on the other.
NBC's Pat Dawson is close to the scene of that attack. Pat?
Just moments ago, I spoke to the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department. He received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place. And then an hour after the first hit here, with the first crash that took place, he said there was another explosion that took place in one of the towers here. According to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. The second device he speculates, was probably planted in the building.
That's what some people are saying. Now,
the base of the South Tower.
I was under the impression that it was just the actual collapse of the building, but some people are speculating that. I mean, I didn't want to say that because...
Maybe they had that was an incredible. That was an incredible explosion. And that does not cause so much. I agree with you. I think it was the third plane, but again, no, it could have been something. It could have been something that was planted, or a bomb planted in the building.
But as soon as I got outside, I heard a second explosion and another rumble. And then a fire marshal came in and said we had to leave because if there was a third explosion, this building might not last.
And you were working there? Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement. Came down. All of a sudden, the elevator blew up. Smoke. I dragged the guy out. His skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out.
They saw an airliner going to one of those towers. Then, an hour later than that, we had that big explosion, but much lower. I don't know what on earth caused that.
We've heard reports of secondary explosions after the aircraft impacted, whether in fact there wasn't something else at the base of the towers that in fact were the coup de grace to bring them to the ground.
Do we have Jim Smith available on microphone from Chopper 2 as he takes these pictures? Jim?
Yes, I am here, Michael.
Jim, tell us what's happening out there.
We just witnessed some kind of secondary follow-up explosion on the World Trade Center #2, the one that is on the south that is difficult to make out.
As effective as a bomb being dropped there were two bombs in effect. Commercial airliners flown into those two buildings and they came down. We presume because of the initial explosion, there may have been secondary explosions as well that were detonated in the building by these terrorists.
That would put us about a block and a half away from the site of where the explosion was. That area has just been evacuated because police have found what they described as a suspicious device. And they fear that it might be something that could lead to another explosion. Obviously, there's a real sense of caution here on the part of police. I spoke with some police officials moments ago, Chris, and they told me that they have reason to believe that one of the explosions at the World Trade Center, aside from the ones that may have been caused by the impact of the plane with the building, may have been caused by a van that was parked in the building that may have had some type of explosive device in it. So their fear is that there may have been explosive device planted either in the building or in the adjacent area.
Okay, I'm okay, all right? Here, look. You want to call your mother or something?
Bam, you heard it. Yo, so see, and guys, the reason why we're playing this for y'all is because you can't find these clips on YouTube anywhere. Because the thing is, back in 2001, this is all taken right around September 11, 2001, which I know some of you guys are like, wow, the potato quality. Keep in mind that these are old clips from damn near over 20 years ago, right? When the attack just happened.
They're also a copy of a copy of a copy because they kept getting deleted.
Yeah. So you're not going to find this stuff anywhere else on YouTube, guys. But look at that. All the witnesses saying that there were explosions on site at the time. And the reason why you know that it's real is because obviously at this point there was pandemonium. No one knew what the hell was going on, but everyone remembers that there were explosions there. Now the narrative's been written where no one says anything about explosions and trucks with bombs in them, etc.
On purpose, by the way.
So it's been cleaned up. But of course, you know, shout out to Ryan. He had VCRs going at this time, recording all this shit. So he has a save. But y'all ain't going to find this nowhere else, man. You want us to keep running the clip, Ryan?
Speaking of Rumble and buildings falling,
yeah, we're going to switch here in a little bit.
Oh, keep running the clip because the other stuff we need is all black and I'm fixing them right now.
All right, cool. Okay, keep running the clip. Go ahead.
Don't worry about me. You need to make calls right now.
We just heard another explosion. They're handing out gloves and masks.
I think a bomb went up to the lobby first, then a plane hit the building. Then another plane hit the other building. But when I was coming through the doors on the other side of the Trade Center, something, either they blew the lobby up or something, because it blew the glass out of the doors and knocked us all down, and I got smoke and everything on me. I just feel a little shook up because I got blasted, you know. So.
The ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby where they report they believe there was a bomb in the lobby. And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run. And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds in the first plane hit. And all of a sudden, it sounded like, I don't know where the subway is, but it sounded like a subway collision, a bomb. And it was just pounding, boom, boom, boom. And I literally thought the subway had exploded, and all the cars just went on top of it. It was so loud.
I was actually in the subway heading towards the World Trade Center right around Franklin Street. And after the first explosion, the subway station started to fill with smoke. The subway cars started to fill with smoke, and the subways actually stopped.
It was that he was in the lobby of World Trade Center 1 when the first plane hit. And when the debris started coming down, he went back.
You can pause here for a second.
Building to protect himself. And
right
in
here.
the room.
So you guys can see all the witnesses, man, to include firefighters, police officers, people on scene, all of them saying bombs were going off, not just the planes. Go ahead, Ryan, please.
Right. And so from these clips on, they're going to talk about specifically their own running theory from the FBI itself was a combination of truck bombs and planes. Okay. And you're also going to hear, you already heard police found an explosive device in a van, right? This is going to be important. Now, I apologize because some of the clips I had prepared were saved in the wrong format or whatever, and I'm rendering them and saving them right now. So it's what it is. But we're going to have to talk after we go over this next like 3 minutes. Then we're going to have to switch to Rumble because it's going to get into stuff YouTube doesn't let you say. And it's sad. Like, why won't YouTube let you criticize a state, right? We're not criticizing an ethnic group or anything. We're criticizing a country. But that's how it is there. So I'm getting these. I'm getting yarn in right now.
I can read these chats while you do that, Ryan. I can read these chats.
That'd be great. Yeah, give me some time.
I'll read these real quick while you render that stuff real quick. So we got here Timothy McMahon music goes, never look forward to a show so much.
Chris, these are old Chris.
Get it? Look for this one here.
Okay, we got EKZ goes, hey y'all, I called in about 7 months ago and
this
y'all
is old as well.
Okay, that's throwing up then.
Chris, come on, man.
Okay, Jabala goes, yo, my first super chat. I gotta say much love to you Negroes. Can I get a raid? I want to get to 3K. We already went off Twitch, my friend. We had to go off Twitch in the first 20 minutes. Alex goes, if you want to go deeper, Zachary K. Hubbard speaks these false flags down by the numbers Gematria. Okay, I don't know who that is, but we got the number 1 9/11 guy here, bro. So that's fine. What's up, FNF? Y'all still working on the autograph merch? What autograph merch?
Who said that?
I don't think anybody said that, bro. JBW goes, Dr. Judy Wood is the individual with the most information on 9/11, in my opinion. She wrote a book.
She's an absolute kook that says things got dustified. Ignore that.
Yeah. And we're going to debunk some of her theories here as well, guys. Don't worry. She wrote a book called Where Did the Towers Go? Professor of Mechanical Engineering. And then we got here.
I went to a scrapyard, and I'm going to show you the photos of it.
Yep, we got proof of that as well. And for all you guys that keep saying a missile hit the Pentagon, we got something for y'all too that no one has put on the internet. So we got Frankie Siv here. Thank you for great content like this and exposing the truth. Appreciate it, Frankie Siv. We got David Marte goes, any insight of the Austrian artists known as Gelatin and E-Team? Those two groups lived in North and South Towers shortly before 9/11. Weirdly enough, they occupied the same floors where the planes
More
hit.
kook stuff. That is an Austrian art students. They had nothing to do with 9/11.
We're going to talk about the art students as well with the DEA. We already know what y'all are going to ask, so we already have all that ready to go for y'all. Caitlin Shoot goes, I'm behind, so I'm catching up, but I just wanted to say thank you. My mom died in 2011 from a blood disorder from helping at Ground Zero. The victims deserve to have their story told. Condolences to your mother. Squat Like Keep goes, things like this make you wonder about what we've been taught about history, especially what they made you believe about World War II. You guys should do an episode on that one day as well. Much love. Don't worry, we're gonna have Ryan back to cover a bunch of stuff. Honestly, Ryan's gonna teach y'all a lot of stuff that they didn't want to teach y'all
in school.
So Ryan, are you ready to go now, or do you want us to continue playing this, or
You're muted, bro.
I've got the George Washington Bridge clip ready back on the tab that you originally were using.
Let's do it. Let's run this George Washington clip.
Do that, but I'm still rendering the other ones. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. And just so you guys know, the reason why we talked about the 1993 World Trade Center attack is because it has shocking similarities to 2001. Okay? Again, they don't want to talk about the truck bombs in the 2001 attack, despite the fact that you guys just heard 1 million people say that they heard bombs at the situation. And then from a physics standpoint, you know, the building's not going to fall the way it did unless there was something going off at the bottom. To cause the free fall. So I know there's a lot of people that talk about controlled demolitions, etc., which we're going to talk about that as well later on when we talk about the debunking portion. But it's pretty much irrefutable at this point that bombs were staged on the bottom floors of the World Trade Center.
And if you notice now, 2 buildings are gone. Only one building there.
Yep.
One world order. Just saying, man.
All right, let's go ahead and run this clip real fast.
All right, so is there
this is right here, right, Ryan?
It's a NISAP or
The one on the George Washington Bridge. This is vital.
and let's see, because I refreshed it.
Does it say GW Bridge on it, Ryan?
Paul, Omar.
Go up.
Okay.
Okay.
The one go down.
Go down. Down.
More vans?
It's black, but it's like dark black. Go down
This
one
is it?
more.
Oh,
That's
one more
not it.
down.
Down one more.
That one
There
right
you
here.
go.
Okay. Okay. All right, and just so you guys understand, this concerns a van that was pulled over on the George Washington Bridge at about 10:45 p.m. September 11, 2001. You guys are not going to see this anywhere else, but this is really important. Let's run it.
Joining me is Jack Kelly. Now, he is a foreign correspondent. He has some information about these attacks. Jack, what can you tell us happened first in New York?
Apparently, what appears to happen is that at the same time 2 planes hit the building, that the FBI most likely thinks that there was a car or truck packed with explosives underneath the buildings, which also exploded at the same time and brought both of them down.
Now, that's the first time we're hearing that. So 2 planes and explosives that were in the building. Is that correct?
That is the working theory at this point. That is still unconfirmed. That is what the FBI is going on at this point.
The New York City Police Department has a report that the FBI is responding to New Jersey because a truck reportedly loaded with explosives has been stopped by authorities on the road there, and the men with that truck have been detained. Members of the Joint Terrorist Task Force, according to the New York police officials, are responding to question those people. I want to underline that all the phones to police headquarters and to the FBI from here seem to be disabled.
They stopped the truck.
Yeah, pause that for a second.
Full of explosives, and
all right.
Think about that. They cut the media off from the cops and the FBI. Right, but they gave him the working theory, and he just announced it very calmly that they believe there was a truck bomb in tandem with the plane attacks, which correlates with all the secondary explosions people heard.
Yep.
And then they said police have pulled over a van filled with explosives, and they have the men in custody. That's what he just said. And this is going to be corroborated again by CBS and twice and CNN and so on. So go ahead and continue.
they arrested them. Those 2 men and their explosives are in police custody tonight, and another tragedy has been averted.
Still alive in the rubble in and around the World Trade Center.
And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives had anything to do with other events of the day is unclear, but the FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge. But they arrested the 2 suspects and they're questioning them as we speak.
And that it was near the George Washington Bridge. There were 2 or 3 men who were in the van. The van was pulled over. It is not clear why the van was pulled over, but when it was, law enforcers found tons of explosives inside of the van.
George Washington Bridge, Marcia.
Well, you know, Todd, it's really an amazing thing. Most of New York City's rescue operations and their police and fire departments have been concentrating their actions down in Lower Manhattan, where the 2 planes hit the 2 towers of the World Trade Center. But some very intelligent and aggressive cops also stopped another terrorist attack from happening on the George Washington Bridge. CBS 2 has learned exclusively that 2 men are in custody tonight after being arrested at the George Washington Bridge with an entire truckload of explosives.
The FBI has now put out a nationwide APB, all points bulletin, for a white Chevy van with New Jersey registration. Written on the back is Urban Moving Systems.
And I think this is where we're gonna have to transition, guys.
This is definitely where we have to get off Rumble. I'm getting the clips as we speak. I got the first 2. So let's So look, Urban Moving Systems, they pulled out a bolo that's be on the lookout. Okay. We're gonna explain the timeline and that in a second. So everybody kick it over to Rumble because we definitely can't say this on YouTube.
Well, okay, before we switch over, quick little summary for y'all. All right. So first we went over, obviously, introducing who Ryan Dawson is. We went over the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and similarities between that and what we just covered in 9/11. We went over the 1999 dry run by Saudi individuals that were basically trying to, kind of replicate the 9/11 situation. Then we went over to the money movement involving 2 Saudi terrorists that ended up being in the plane that hit the Pentagon. And then we just went over pretty much irrefutable proof that there were explosions as said by witnesses and even the news at the time back in 9/11. And this story broke out, I think right around 10:45 p.m. or so at 9/11, where they caught 2 individuals in a van filled with explosives. Now, if you guys want to know who those 2 individuals are, it's time to switch over to Rumble at this point, guys. So we're going to kill the YouTube stream right here on Feta and for Fresh and Fit. Come on over to Rumble right now, guys. And we're going to talk about who was in those fucking vans.
The link is in the chat, guys.
Links in the chat, top of the description. Guys, come on over.